Hi, sir.
Hi.
Okay. Yeah, welcome all. We have right now how many? 6 people, and this is our 54th PC open discussion. We had it off for 2 weeks, and I had some good questions during these 2 weeks, majorly around how you do export to Excels in Business Central, and also around how do you email things from Business Central. Because if you don't know, the old email module is going to be obsolete in next release. So it's time, I guess, we all should adopt the new model of doing emailings and all. So I'll talk about those. And let's go through the normals here. If you're here for the first time, which I don't think anyone is here for the first time, but then you can register here. This page gets updated normally after this meeting. And if you are in the meeting and don't want to register every week, then drop me your name and email in chat, and I'll make sure you get invite every week automatically. What happened this in last these 2 weeks? Interesting was the Business Central Cumulative Update 4 for Business Central 18 was released, as we were just discussing a while ago. And I'm pretty sure people who were presenting Dynamics on, they all have completed the recordings. Mine went pretty crazy because of internet issues, but I hope that it comes up good on the day when everybody sees it. Directions EMR is coming up. I'm not sure that there's a virtual component this time, but then also DynamicsCon is doing an in-person in US this year. So that's something that's new for Business Central developers and consultants. Anything else that you heard of which I missed somewhere? Okay. So then let's jump into the questions. There are 3 questions that I have for today. The first one is from one of our default attendees and also presenting this time in DynamicsCon, from Tanya. And she had this question from one of my very old blog of NAB to how to export multiple sheets in Excel from Business Central. And people who had been in NAB, they know that we were able to download data into Excel by creating simple reports in NAV. And there were ways by modifying the base Microsoft code to create multiple sheets in Excel while we are exporting that. But today we'll give it a try in Business Central. If you haven't read the blog or if you haven't seen it, there is already a Git repo for export Excel, which just walks you through for a simple export to Excel from one table, which is pretty common. I'm pretty sure everybody will be able to do it. I have cloned this repo, and here is the cloned repo. Let me zoom this in. What this report is doing is just taking all the items and showing some fields like number, description, base unit of measure, and inventory, and then putting those values into Excel sheet and is able to export it. I'm pretty sure this is not something that you need in Business Central because you can directly click on send to Excel and it'll send your data. But there are situations where you want a template like this, where you can do your permutation and combinations and then send data to Excel. So this is just a template of how you do that in Business Central. But what we'll do today, I'll just change or create a copy of this report, and we'll name it as multiple sheets. Okay. I'm changing here in the Explorer so you can see it, but it'll get updated there. Okay. So now once that is done, let's open that report and let me give it a number 90,001 and say it as multiple sheets. Okay. And I don't want it to be attached to a menu, so what I'll do, don't want to attach it to a page, so I'll also add a there is already users category, and I'll say export multiple sheets to Excel. Now let's assume, just for the demo, that we want to export some information from the customer card in one sheet and some information from the vendor card into a separate sheet. What I'll do is I'll change this to customer. Is somebody saying something, or do I need to mute someone? Okay, all look good. Okay, so and then let's assume I want the balance also from customer. So change it to customer and use auto calci field to save time in flow field calculation. And then because I'm trying to have one other data item, which is, let's say, vendor, and in that I'll have more or less same things. So I'll just copy this to save time. Number, set auto currency field for vendor this time. And then what I'll do is I'll change this function to be create customer Excel header. This will generate my header in the Excel file, this function, and then this I'll change this to create customer Excel body. So this will generate the Excel body for that customer for each record in this case. But eventually, when you are doing it for a real scenario, you might have some calculation that you're doing, and based on that, you can call these different functions at different places. Now for vendor, I'll just change it to be vendor here, and also here to be vendor. Now once this is done, I'll keep all of the triggers as it is, which are creating Excel file, and is emptying this. The customer will point to customer. Where these are just the captions from the table field that I want to export, and they will generate the body, the header for that Excel sheet. So my fields are number, let's say name, and this may be, let's say, city in customer card, and then as we have already calculated, I'll use the balance. In a similar fashion, I'll just create a copy of it for vendor, and this will generate the vendor Excel header, and this all will point to vendor. Now once the headers are ready, then I'm worried about my I'm just turning this. Save this. Okay. Now let's talk about the body, which is customer.number, and then we'll talk about this field, which is customer.name, customer.city, and the customer.balance. This will generate all the inputs that all the records in the customer table data into Excel, and now I'll create a copy of it for this one now. Yes, for vendors. And you can be, you can be creative here. Just pass record there if you want. I'm just showing it in a pretty easy, simple way so that people can follow it. So now the assumption is that it should be able to export the data out from the customer and the vendor table. We'll create the headers, we'll create the body as we have called it here and here. I'm hearing some noise. Shahid, I'll have to mute you. Sorry. Okay. Now once this is done, that's okay. Now the way it works is when we write these functions, fills in this table called temp Excel buffer. It fills in this data that is there, and if you read about it, and there's a blog around it, the add column needs these parameter, which is what is the value that you want to write. Is it a formula that you're passing? Do you want to add some comments into Excel? Do you want it bold, italics, underline? Is there a number formatting that you want to use? And the cell type have specific options, like do you want it to be formatted as text, number, date, and time. Those are the 5 options, if I'm not wrong. Date, number, text, and time. We can use these formats. Excel that is generated from Business Central looks pretty good there. Now the problem happens is that we can't change the sheet at the runtime. When the customer sheet is built in, we want a separate sheet to be created into the Excel before it generates the vendor sheet. So what we'll do is, once all the customer records are processed from on after get record, the trigger for this we'll add a new trigger, which is on our post data item. Once every vendor is processed, we want to make sure that our sheet is created and then the new sheet is added for vendors. What we can do is we can write a function, let's say create Excel, create, let's say create Excel sheet, and we'll have to in this function somewhere. So let's define that. It's here. Now let's notice what was happening when we were doing it for one item. When we were doing it for one record, like I was doing it for the item last time, once the whole processing happens, I call this function to create a new book, which creates a new book, Excel workbook. And then inside that, it writes a new sheet. And once the sheet write is completed, it closes the book and it opens, which means it downloads the sheet for the user in Business Central. What we want to do at this point is the sheet need to be added in case when I'm completed the customer data processing into Excel. So there will be a function in Excel buffer to create a sheet. Let's try that, and Excel buffer dot sheet, and there should be a function select or add sheet. So that means it can either select an existing sheet or add a new sheet into this, and it needs a parameter which is the new sheet name. So if the new sheet name exists, it will select it. If it does not exist, it will create it. So let's try using this. And as it needs a parameter sheet name, we'll just use that as sheet name. And we will get it from the function, from the place where it is being called. And let's see what the length of that is supposed to be. It's text. So let's assume that it's 250, the max. And if I pass the sheet name here, which can be whatever you want to call it, but you can also do it as customer.table name, so that it gets created. Let's see what the warning is. It's just an overflow assignment. And if you are using this ALAZ extension for VS Code, it can automatically wrap it around copy star so that it doesn't flow beyond the length of what it is required. Now this will create a new sheet, which makes sense, but there will be a situation where I don't want to create the new sheet. I just want to kind of make sure that my second data item, when I call it for vendor, then I don't want to create a new book, this create new book thing. That I only need to do when my first data item is calling this function, which in this case customer. So when the customer calls it, it should create the book. But when vendor calls it, it should not create the book. So what I'll do is I'll add one more parameter here. Let's name it as new book. That's Boolean. And then in case of customer, I'll just pass this parameter as true so that my new book is created. So now if I come down here, I just need to utilize this, which is if the new book is required, that means this function or this method is being called for the first time, then the create new book should happen, right? Because this is the first time when the book is being created, and I'll create the new book with this sheet name, let's say. Let's create it. The create new book also needs a sheet name. So the create new book, inside this function, it also calls the create new sheet. If you go here, it creates the book, and then in create book, it also calls, if the sheet name is blank, it errors out. Otherwise, it creates a sheet also in that book. So it's just a sheet name. But I only want to do it when it is called for the first time. In other cases, I just want to call this. I don't want to call the create book. I'll just wrap it around in this else. For the first time, the new book will be created and the sheet will be automatically added. In the next case, when I'm doing it for the vendor, it will come to this place and only add the sheet that I need. Then I have to do the same thing, which is the write sheet, which is common in both the cases. Either it is my customer or vendor. I'll just wrap it around the sheet name. And these are the parameters for write sheet, which is the company name and the user ID with the report header that you want. Now, once this is done, I'll be able to kind of utilize this to add new sheet. I'm hoping at this point. So now let's do this and also call this function after the vendor also. So I'll copy this from here, paste it here, and I'll say it instead of customer to be the vendor. Now this should create both of my sheets which I want. And now comes the point where I actually want. Go ahead.
It should be false in this case, the last parameter.
Thank you. Completely forgot that. Yes. Once this is done, what I was doing in the past is I was calling this create Excel book at the end of the report where everything is done. So if I come to this function, which is create Excel book, I don't need to do a create new book because this is already done. I don't need to write the sheet because that is also done. Okay, then what else is left? I'll have to close the book, which remains as it is. Then I'll need to give it a friendly name that is generated from this. So I'll just say it might be sheet export. This will be the kind of the file name. And then I'll do an open Excel, which will eventually download that file. Let's give it a try. I haven't tested it. Let's give it a try, how this one works. And then if there are any problems, we will try to fix those. So, go to this. So, okay. It should pop up. Okay. Let me stop it here, the debugging, and switch to my Docker. Now the report name I have done is export multiple sheet to Excel. So let's search for it once it loads, so that we can see what's happening with this. Export multiple sheets to Excel. Now you can surely add filters. I have just compressed all the filters for customers and vendor in this case. When I click OK, it should download a file here with the friendly name that I have given, if this code works. debugging is disabled. I don't know why it's taking so long. Yes, let me close this. PC 183 and that's again. Okay. And let's try to okay. So I have this multi-sheet export Excel. I'm sorry, it came to my other screen. It did create 2 sheets for 5 customers here, but in this case, it went a little bit crazy. So let's see the customer list first here in the system, which is from 10,000 to 50,000, which makes complete sense that they all came as it is with the right balances and all. But in the second sheet where I had to do the vendors, it kind of went a little bit crazy in that part and also exported the customer and then moved the vendor header here and also tried to export the vendors in this case. So that means we did have to reset our Excel when we are trying to create the new book, which is somewhere around here, or Excel sheet, sorry. When you are trying to create the Excel sheet, so the first sheet, customer comes, it creates a book, then it writes the sheet. But at that point, the temp Excel buffer is not empty, it have data. And that's why it is repeating that data again into the second sheet. We'll have to make sure that after this, we surely do a delete all from this. And remember, this is temporary. Always keep Excel buffer as temporary. And then we will also have to reset the row number, because if you notice here, instead of starting from column 0, it started from column number 5, because anytime you add these add column, it increases behind the scene the column count in that table. So it just work on that way. So we'll also have to reset that number, which happens using a function called clear new, which will reset both the variables. I'm pretty sure. Yes, it sets it to 00. So your row number and your column number get reset to 0. See if that's set current. Yeah. So instead of having the row number as whatever it was in the past and the column number, it resets it to 00, and that way we'll be able to pull that info into the next sheet from at the top as in. So let's publish this again. And let me stop the debugger here. And let's wait for it. But do you have a scenario where you guys use it? I haven't used it in Business Central till now, but I got 5 questions around it for some reason from different people.
This is Steve. Just to confirm, this technique always requires AL. Is that accurate? Like there's no
Yes.
native option in BC to do this?
No, there's no native option, because, and Steve, where we use it is in a situation, let's say, where you have to do some analysis on data in Excel, right? And that is not coming from one single source or one single table.
Right.
Because natively there is export to Excel. You can click it on any page and
Right.
generate that Excel, right?
No,
But
doesn't
yeah.
don't configuration packages have the ability to pull multiple worksheets?
Yes, it has, but that is again based on one table at a time, right? Like you can have
Raw
customer vendor
tables,
on different
right.
raw tables, but let's say if you want to get a customer, it's open ledger entries, and then either
Yeah.
you'll have to create that kind of page,
Yep.
which and then exported Excel, or this was kind of old route that people like to use?
I think it's awesome. I mean, because export to Excel is kind of handy, but it's just one limited data dump from a given page. Being able to pull down multiple worksheets, I think, would be super valuable for users.
Right, and there are scenarios where it makes super sense to use this for some specific analysis and all. So I guess that's why the request was there for this. So
That's a great idea.
So while we were talking about this, it did export the vendors here on the separate sheet and customers here. And as I said, you can always apply different filters, different combinations based on different scenarios that you have, and then use this framework of kind of creating a new book or select or adding a sheet to generate the new sheet. And there is no limit. As you can see, you can also add item into this or any other sheet. This logic will remain as it is as you keep on adding the different data items. And I'm pretty sure on GitHub there are some Excel helpers written by different developers, which makes this part more easier. So you might want to use it. I didn't want to show it here because it will confuse people who haven't seen the basic export to Excel.
Just
So,
a small input.
Yeah.
Business Central, you can do it even from the layout. So Indian localization does have a field report called ledger, which creates separate sheet for each and every GL account. And the way it does is basically for each group, there's a property in the RDLC when you're developing that layout. There you can have that property create new sheet on each page break or something.
Right. The only problem that I've seen as developer, Sandeep sir, over there is when you're doing it on a printable report, it very much depends on how the layout is built, right? So if the layout have a header where the developer have used text boxes, those kind of report into Excel come super bad. Like, let me give you an example. So like if I go here and set my report selection sales, wrong page. If I use my report selection sales and change my, let's say, invoice report instead of 1306, which I haven't seen anybody using, to base kind of Microsoft report. Now we need to remember that this report has a header which have text boxes. So whenever I'll go to, let's say, posted sales invoice, and we'll try to print this, and instead of printing it directly, I'll say send it to Excel. Everything else in the report body comes super great because it's part of, I guess the data set that came. Print and send to Excel data and layout. Oh, sorry, yeah, data and layout.
Hello.
Hey, Rishikesh, you're saying something? So this is the problem. The top part is the problem, I guess, because what happens is in the design, these are text boxes. And if you see these overlaps, these hidden rows, so these kind of printable report, if they are just built on a table X like this, they are super good. Because then it, the Excel component is able to match each column to one shell here. But when the text boxes are used in a report design, then it gets very hard or tricky to kind of use it in a way like user likes it. Does that make sense, Anita? So yeah, as in you can surely use the default export to Excel as we saw right now, but in that case your report should be static in a table X, and there should not be merge cell. Like in this case, in the design, I'm pretty sure the two columns in the table X are merged to print this description here. Now, because this part have text boxes, it completely changed how this looks. So if you are only using table X in your report body, in your report design, then super cool and easy, as Sandeep sir was saying, to export that data out in Excel, because it makes it easier, and then there are properties to split each document or each grouping into different sheets, which is also possible. But in a scenario where there will be a header in the printable part, that's where I guess user like to have an option to send to Excel or print to Excel. Does that make sense?
Is it possible to read the sheet names
Yes.
in an existing workbook and iterate through them?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, cool.
So there is a read sheet function. When you call it, it gives you a pop-up with all the sheet name, and then you can select it.
Fantastic.
So when you go to the Excel buffer table methods, let me open my VS Code. In the Excel buffer, there is a function which can read sheet. Now, read sheet, as soon as you call it, it gives user a pop-up based on the file that you select here, right? And then it shows you a pop-up to kind of select your book. So once you select that sheet, it reads all the data into it and put it into Excel buffer in row number and column numbers.
And does that function require user input, or can I read all the worksheets programmatically only without any dialogue?
Okay, that's a good question. I guess there are ways that you can do it. I have done it in NAV. I'm pretty sure we can figure that out. That you need a pop-up or not.
I'm just curious. I do occasionally, I have in the past had cases where I needed to read the worksheets and say put data in worksheet A and other data in worksheet B, like maybe I'm adding rows to those existing worksheets. It's not common, but I've had to do it in .NET. So, okay, no worries.
Yeah, I've done it in NAV based on the request, but I'm not sure about the AL part yet, because in NAV there were ways we can modify base code. So it was easier to kind of comment things. Right?
Okay, cool.
Okay, so let's move to the next question, which is again kind of connected to this one. So that's why I took this one first. The second one is attaching an Excel generated through Excel buffer, which we just generated, and sending email from it from Business Central on cloud. So not on-prem, not on cloud, not on-prem, but on cloud. So we will try to copy this report again, and this time we'll try to use the same report to send as email. Okay. So we can use any of these, either single one or multiple one. I'm just using the second one. Export and send. Excel. I'm just renaming it here. And I've used the same report, created a copy of it, and just number it as 90,002. And I'll have to name it something like this. Start and change it here. So this is what we'll be using to export and send Excel via email. Now, if you haven't seen, there are very good videos from different MVPs available about streams and all. And I'm pretty sure we talked about the stream thing in past, that how you use the streams to do certain things. And that's how you can do it using streams in Business Central. So instead of writing that code here, I would prefer to create a code unit, which I'll call my email helper. So let me create a new folder, unit, and let's create a new file and call it as email helper. Now the idea with this is that I'll utilize this code unit, and this will be available in GitHub going forward. I would like to utilize this code unit to write some scenarios which help me for sending emails and all. So let's do a code unit at 90,000. Let's call it as email helper. Now, if you haven't heard about table because it was existing in NAV also, that is email item. Go ahead and look for it. It is a super cool table. It's a pattern that is used for sending all the emails, and we will be using that in this example also, which is the email item, and all these are all always need to be temp, and it's email item. Table from legacy. If you haven't seen it, go ahead and look at it. It's available, if I'm not wrong, from Business Central 13 and all. And okay, and it need to be temporary. Now this table gives you all the required field that you need to send an email, like who is sending it, what is his name, whom you want to send it to, whom you want to CC, BCC, what is the subject, what is the body of your email, do you want to attach some files, do you want HTML, plain text or HTML in your email body. And then there are 7 attachments which are available, which are going to be removed because there are new ways how you can attach n number of attachment unless your exchange rejects it, which is, I guess the limit is 25 MB for attachment. But if you come to this table, you'll see that all these fields are marked to be obsolete and they'll be removed because there is a generic method called add attachment in the same table, which can attach any number of files using strings. So don't use these fields if you are using them in your older solution, because all these fields are going away, like attachment file part 2, 3 till 7. All these are going away because there are enhancements into this table that will make it more simpler than doing it using these different options. So now let's create a function on this, which is send email, and this might be the first function in this. So we'll keep on, I'll keep on adding other simple scenarios also into it, but let's create a function send email. And what I need right now is a list of recipients that I want. The person who will be on the team. I would also like to add the person who will be CC'd on this email if somebody needs it. I might not utilize it, but I'll just define it here. Somebody might also want to use the BCC recipients. Just add this. What else we will need in the email? Okay, we'll need an email subject. So let's add email subject. And all these are, I'm defining based on the size which is available in the temp email item table. And now because it's will need attachments into it, so what I'll do is, because I'll be using strings as that's the only way, I'll need an attachment blob, which is referring to my code unit of 10 blob. And I'll also need the file name that I want to attach. So attachment name as text. Based on this combination, I would like to send an email in these different scenarios. And the way is super simple is once you have all these different options, the parameters which are available on this function, you can just do a temp email thing, which is temp email item dot from address, which would be my let's park it for a while and we'll think about it. I want to send it to, so there would be a send to in this table to my recipients, and then I want to send CC to anything who is my CC recipient. I want to send BCC to anything who is my BCC recipients. I am not going complex on this one. Maybe I'll create a separate method for this, but I'm just trying to use a fixed email subject, which is subject would be email subject that comes in, and in the body, just to make sure that we're keeping it simple, we'll say this is demo email body. We can use how Microsoft uses word layouts to get the email body, which is also possible. And maybe in future, I'll add one more send email with different parameters so that you can see how you can use that feature. And because it's a plain text, I'll also do my plain text formatted as true. And then the only thing left is to send it, which is an email dot send have over two ways how you can send it. So let's quickly have a look. One is just hide mail dialog, so there's no pop-up and it just directly goes behind the scene. Or there is an hide dialog with an email scenario. Now we have talked in past about email scenarios. If you want, you can use email scenarios. Otherwise, system will automatically take the default email person who is defined there and will use that person for sending emails. So I'll say I want to send it with hide dialog, and I'll not use the second method, which is email scenario. Let it choose it. What is the warning here? Send is marked for removal. So that means we will need something for email scenarios because the normal send is going away. So let's do this. Let's add this here as email scenarios of type enum email scenario. So we'll get the scenario from the caller and we'll use that scenario in our send method. So that will be utilized. Now, as far as the to is concerned, or the sender is concerned, I like this Microsoft way, so I'll just copy this from the standard Microsoft code, paste it here, which is get the sender email based on the user setup, whatever the email is, and you can customize it the way you want it. And the name also is coming from the user card based on the user who is trying to send the email. Now let's see how it behaves in case of scenarios, because that's what this is the intention at this point. So let's do a get sender email based on the user ID who's sending it, and then also use my from name using the other function get sender name using the user who is sending it. So this will kind of get those email IDs and all and send it there. Now the only thing that is remaining in that question which we are trying to answer is to have an attachment there. And we already added a blob, attachment blob, and also attached an attachment file name. So now the way it works is, let's create a separate function to add email attachment, and we will pass the temp email body, email item, and also pass the attachment blob and attachment file name here. Now once this is done, let's get this created, just here. Okay, and then in this function we will use our streams to kind of write this into temp email item. So what I'll do is I'll create a attachment stream which is of type of instream, and then using this stream I'll read whatever is in that temp blob. This is my attachment blob, which is that code unit variable, and I'll create any stream with my attachment stream that kind of fits into this, and then now the content that came into this blob is now passed into the attachment stream. And then now I'll use my temp email item to add attachment, which needs two parameters. One is in stream, which is in a stream, and then the file name that you want to give it to. So I can do an attachment in stream, attachment stream, and attachment file name, which will attach it into the temp email item, and that will get attached for sending an email at this point. Now, as we have defined this here, let's kind of utilize this function into our new report copy that we just created. What is this? Export and send Excel. Now, in export and send Excel, we'll have to think from the perspective of where my file is being generated. So my file actually is being generated when this happens. This function is being called create Excel book, which is here. So let's remove these two lines. They're no longer needed. At this point, my book gets closed. It gets a friendly name, and it tries to open it. Now, instead of opening it, I actually want to send it. So is there a way that I can put it into my blob? Because then I can pass it there. So Excel buffer also have a function to save your file to stream. Whatever is in the content of your Excel buffer, instead of downloading that file, you can actually save it into the stream. Now, when we try to save it to stream, it needs a outstream, and there is a boolean that do you want to erase the file after it's completed, which means delete the file on the temporary server where it's created. So let's define an outstream here. Stream. And let's try to store the content of this Excel buffer into this, and we want to, what was the other parameter? Erase the file. Yeah, so yeah, we want to erase the file once it is stored in the stream. So with this line, my content is into the O stream, but I'll need to have it on my temp blob reference, which I'm going to send to my helper code unit. So I'll also create a temp blob here, which is of type code unit temp blob. Now, anything that comes into this, I need to make sure that it is set into this temp blob, and you can only write into temp blob when you do a create out stream and then use this variable so that it gets stored into the temp blob over stream. The temp blob initiates the stream, the Excel buffer saves it into the stream, and then I call my function of my helper function instead of open Excel. Or you can define a boolean on the request page that do you want to download the file or do you want to send as an email, and be creative on that area. It's up to you how you want to do that. But to make it just for the demo, we'll use the email helper code unit here. And we will call email helper dot send mail. Send mail first needs the recipient. I'll hard code it right now, but you can change it as you want it. Creative, put it on request page, it's up to you. I don't want it to be CC to anyone, so I'll keep it blank, and I also don't want to be CC to anyone, so I'll keep it blank. Now let's see what the other parameters are. The other parameters are subject. Now let's say the subject is here is this sample email, and the next one is email scenario. So I'll create that email scenario here. enum email scenarios, and I'll use my email scenario here, and I can choose which scenario I want to use. I can keep it default, I can keep it whatever I want based on the setup that I have. So for the demo, I'll keep it simple to be default. And then the next parameter is my temp blob code unit and the file name. So I'll pass my temp blob here. And then the last is the file name, which is super important because when the file gets into a stream, it kind of loses what type of file it is. Is it Excel, is it PDF, or things like that. So you'll have to give the file name with extension, file extension, so that it gets stored into the system and maybe being utilized as we go through it. Right? So I'll name it, let's say, email from BC, I guess. That makes sense. Email from BC dot xlxsx, I guess. Is this the extension for Excel? Okay, yes, it's xlxs. So this will make sure that the file doesn't come as unknown in your attachment, and this will become your file name that's being attached on email. So let's hope for the best that we'll get an email from this. Let me run this, and I'm not sure I've set the default account in the system or not, but we'll do that otherwise. So let me close this and go back here, and let me see, do I have an email account set up or not. Okay, I have my official email account set as default, and I'm hoping that it's working. Let's quickly check, do I have any emails? I have some failed emails in my draft, which was failed for some reason. Let's see. And I have some send email, notification overview, and I also have some draft email, but that's okay. All right, so let me zoom this in, and we'll try to run this code and see what happens on my email when I try to do this. As I said, you can be creative, have different booleans here based on which the email can go or does not go based on that. Let's click OK. It's trying to do something. Okay, let's first check. Oh, there seems a new email on my draft because my email account is not set up properly, I guess. No, that's not it. Let me see. Send email. Oh, the send email increased. The sample email went from my ID to my personal account, and it has the demo email body, and it also have an attachment called email from BCXLS. Let's quickly go through to my Gmail and see what came in. There it is. Demo email body, and if I zoom this in, I should be able to see all the list of my customers and also for my vendors. So now how you want to be creative in your code, that's up to you. But I'm pretty sure that you'll be able to utilize this scenario using these different parameters into this helper code unit to send an email directly behind the scene based on, you can also define who goes in based on the scenarios that you can set, and that will send as an email your Excel file that you're generating. Any thoughts, questions?
I think I know the answer to this question, but just to confirm, when BC sends out the email, it's just using SMTP connectivity or the Office 365 connection, right?
Yeah.
And so the one example, the one test that I did is, if I have an invoice go out via email from Business Central and someone has mistyped the customer's email address, based on my tests, I am unable to see the success or failure of that delivery from within Business Central.
Oh, you're not able to see that in the failed email inbox?
I did several tests and I was not able to, because the email did get sent via SMTP, but Business Central, based on my test, is not able to, it does not monitor any follow-up of a bounce.
Oh.
So as long as, say, the domain is accurate, if I mistype the username and the email address, I do not see
A
that.
failure.
Yeah. And so if I type a totally invalid SMTP address, right, it may show a failure. But if I mistype the username, or if that mailbox is full, or, you know, whatever, the bounce will go to the whatever shared inbox is being used by Business Central. So I think you can monitor it that way. But as far as I could tell, outbound emails that failed to get delivered do not have any indicator in BC.
Oh. I'll have to check that, but yeah, that seems interesting.
So I just curious, I just wanted to confirm that, but I tried several tests and got several recommendations, but couldn't find a way. So
yeah, I'll also check that.
okay.
So yes, as in we are at top of our hour, but there was one more question, and maybe this is a big question, so I'll talk about it next week. But anything else, we still have 2-3 minutes, and I'm okay to stay longer if required. No questions? But there's something in chat. I haven't seen that. Okay, Shahid, the code will be available on the GitHub repo as I showed in the beginning, which is this repo. I'll just commit it there. So in this Excel export, these two files will be available here, which we created today. So right now there is old one, which I use for a blog, but these two files, or three files that we created today, 2 reports and 1 code unit, will get updated after this meeting in this lab. Anything else? Okay, if nothing, then I guess we go ahead. Sorry.
Hello.
Hey, Steve.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Sarah.
Thank you. Thank you all. In that case, thanks. See you next week.
Thank you. So
Thanks, Saurabh.
Thanks, Saurabh. Can I ask
Thanks,
you a
man.
totally unrelated question?
Yeah, madam.
We have got APIs in Business Control, right? So we can publish API pages. So can a single a page where there are headers and lines, so can we do expand in the URL and also do a filtering?
I'm not sure about the expand, but I think we can do the filtering. And I know you asked about one more thing in this, right? About the deep insert thing.
So we can expand. I have been able to do that pretty easily. I can do filters, multiple filters, no problem.
Okay.
But when we try to do expand plus filter, that gets a problem.
Okay.
That's not working. So if in any of the future
Expand and
sessions,
filter.
you will
Yeah,
help me.
I'll try this week, and then we can surely talk about it next week. And you figured out that inbound functions in APIs or not?
Yes, that they're working.
They are working, right? Okay, so I'll surely check on expand and filter together in API call, and
Great.
that will start it next week with that.
Today's session was pretty wonderful. It was great.
Thank you, sir.
And
Yes,
thanks to you.
Saurabh. Hello.
Hey, Jignesh.
Yes, just for your information, I have sent you that
Okay.
error in the chat. Can you just review quickly?
Okay. Local socket timeout, and you are doing it on a physical server, not on a Docker or anything, right?
Yes.
I haven't seen it. Maybe because I was following as I was telling you. But
Yeah, that thing I will check, but just the proper error. That's why I sent you.
yeah, that makes sense. I'll surely check on this because I have seen this kind of error in Docker creation, or especially when you try to publish these test code units and all into this, right?
Okay.
Something like this.
Okay. Okay.
The socket connection was aborted 801, right?
It is due to some connection issue from
No, this
server
is
side.
not. This is if you include the full log. Okay, let's see what is it. Let's try the same license. Oh, is it due to the license? Did you check that you're using the Business Central license?
Yes, I
Maybe.
have checked. Yeah, and it is a business center license.
Is it? Did you import it from PowerShell into the database?
Yeah, it is previously when I'm starting upgrade in a BC14. I have,
Yeah, but in BC14 you should not have a BC license, right? That will be more or less nav license, or
yes.
so called. But as soon
Okay.
as you go to soon as you convert your database from PowerShell, there's a step to load your Business Central license using import server license, right?
Okay.
And it
Let
may be
me-
completely irrelated because on this particular forum, Freddy is suggesting that this may be due to your license and because you are not using the license of a partner license at this point.
Okay. Okay.
So just try with the license. Make sure that you import the license after you kind of converted it, the database.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Let me check and it will work or not.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
Thank you so
Anything
much.
else, anyone? Okay then. Have a great day and enjoy your weekend. And we'll meet next week.
Yeah. Same to you.
Thank you.
Thank
Same
you.
to
Okay.
Enjoy
Thank
your
you.
weekend.